Yeah, let's get it. Welcome back to the More Than a Mindset podcast with your host A. This podcast is going to be on the black community. It's kind of picking up from where I left off on the last podcast, where I had used the term black community a number of times, but I had wrapped it in air quotes. And I said I would explain why I use air quotes every time I say black community. And the long and short of it is because I don't believe we currently have a black community. Now, the reason I say that is because I have a very strong definition that I hold to for what a black community should be, or what it could be, or what it is. That the people I've spoken to and the people I've met, and their definition of a black community doesn't meet up to what I think it should be. So I'll share what my definition is later, but what I'll do is I'll read off the dictionary definitions of what a community is. And I think these dictionary definitions in a roundabout way sum up the general consensus of what a community is. And when you say the word community, what the majority of people think. So the first definition I found was a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. So I meet a lot of people who think, there's black communities all over London. Just because there's areas where black people live, and to them that's totally justified. But for me, because I have such a strong definition of what a community is, that just doesn't fly with me. I'm like, just a group of people living in the same place is not progressive enough. There's no real benefits from that. I wouldn't personally consider it a community, and I think we should stop thinking of it as a community just because we live there. The second definition I found was a group of people living together and practicing common ownership. Now, this one was quite interesting because I don't know many areas where there's a group of people living together practicing common ownership. So I can't say as black people we meet that definition. And that's one I think that if you was able to come to me and say, hey, we've got a community based on common ownership, I would have to concede and say, actually, yeah, there is such thing. But as far as I've seen and as far as I explored, I haven't come across a black community that shows that characteristic. Another is a nation or body that are unified by a common interest. We have one, the people of a district or country considered a collective, especially in context of social values and responsibilities to society. And yeah, there's a couple more out there that if you care to read, you can just do a Google search or open your dictionary and find out about. But as I read through the dictionary definitions, I saw there was like maybe 3 elements as part of each of the definitions that, when brought together, gave a community. So the first was a group of people. Obviously, there has to be a group of people. The second, I think, which is probably the most important, is the common interest. Having something in common, sharing something, working towards something as a group. And the third being just the proximity to each other, living together, living amongst each other. So those 3 elements to me were the basis of all the dictionary definitions, and I kind of used those 3 bases to come up with my definition of what a black community is. And my definition of a black community is simply a group of people committed to the progression of black people through education, economics, and unity. Plain and simple, a group of people committed to the progression of black people through education, economics, and unity. So when I lay out my definition to the people I speak to, I might get a 50-50 split. Some people are like, that's a pretty good definition, and I can't say I'm part of any community that is actively trying to achieve what you have defined in your definition. And they're like, yeah, great. And then we go on to have great conversations about, boy, how do we build a community? What the limitations, what are the obstacles, X, Y, and Z. But then there's the other half of people who, at this point, I feel like just being argumentative for argument's sake, because they then return with, actually, is there even a need for a black community? And at that point, I'm like, all right, this person just wants to argue, because a second ago you was arguing the point that there are many black communities, and now you've kind of conceded that there isn't really. You want to start to argue, do we need one? And for me, it's simple. Yes, we definitely need a black community. And the reason why we need a black community is because we need to take control of our culture. Now, culture is something I'll have to explore in another podcast, because I think it's a very interesting topic and something that is not really examined, is not really analyzed, and we're currently in a situation where a lot of things are associated with black culture which are not, and they are only associated with black culture because the key figures within that genre or whatever it is have black skin. And when I say key figures, that's even somewhat of an oxymoron. They might just be the poster boy or the poster girl of that genre. So they're not actually the key figure. They're not the person pulling the strings behind the scenes. They're just the person you see and you associate with that genre. But anyway, that's a topic for another podcast. But basically, our culture is being manipulated by people who don't have the same appearance as us, and we need a community to take that back, to be able to say, actually, boom, this is good for us, this is not good for us, and let's get rid of that, let's bring this in, or let's keep this and let's get rid of the bad. So we need to first take back our own culture, and then within taking back our own cultures, we can work on stuff internally, issues that are quite unique to the community. We can work on behind closed doors, and most importantly, we can work on leaving something behind for the next generation, something better. And that's all I really need to say to them. But again, they keep going, and I'll keep sharing, because you might come across people like this, and you don't want to really keep the conversation going up, but because I love my people, I can't give up on them so easily. So after I explain that we need to leave something better behind for our people, we need to work internally to overcome some of the problems that we face. They then say, oh, well, wouldn't it be better to work on becoming just a whole community encompassing all races, all religions, and all whatever, And I'm like, yeah, like, that's great. And that is something that I focus my energy towards. But let's not get it misconstrued. I can focus both on working on integration, shall we call it, and working on progression within a black community. I can do both at the same time. This notion or this idea that especially black people, don't have the mental capacity to work on two things simultaneously is nonsensical, really. I know many people who are able to work on 1, 2, 3 projects at the same time, and I don't think there's any difference between working on the progression of your people and working on to integration of society. By no means building a black community means that we want to isolate and become insular. It just means that we want to build a black community. And I think those people kind of get confused between integration and dependency. I'm saying, listen, we can still integrate, but we can create our own thing. So as much as we might go outside of the community to solve X, Y, and Z, or to do this, that, and the third, we can also do that inside the community. We're no longer dependent on this group of people to buy our hair from. We're no longer dependent on this group of people to facilitate our weddings. You know, it's like we're able to do it internally if we wish, and we're able to do it externally if we wish. So I do try to explain, are you getting dependency and integration mixed up? Because I fundamentally see a problem with being 100% dependent on a different community, and I see no problem with us building our own economy and being able to provide for our own community. So that's kind of where the conversation kind of ends, and I don't know if I get through to the people or not, but at least I'm happy with what I've said. And I kind of cut the conversation short there is because I got to protect my energy. I can't continually talk to someone who just wants to be up against me. I need to focus the majority of my energy on the people who understand in the first place and in the open of the conversation, so that we can get together and we can build and I think that's something that's important for everybody to do, to manage their energy, to project it. Let's not waste it on people who are just not at the same place as you at that time. But again, that's another podcast that I'll speak about later. But I think that kind of sums up why I use air quotes when I say black community. Again, my definition of black community is a group of people dedicated to the progression of black people through education, economics, and unity. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I think I would love to know if you know of any black communities out there who do 1 or 2 or 3 of the things that I've said are kind of the pillars of a black community, whether they very heavily invest in education, they have a group economics, or they are very unified. Because I live in a place that is predominantly black, and I walk down the street and I have a nod or say hello to the people I walk past, and some of them, they just walk on past me, and some of them say hello. So I just wonder, are there any of these communities out there? Because I'll be very interested in going around there, getting to know the people and seeing how we can bring their energy from that community into other communities around wherever you live. I think one thing that we need to discuss, and it would be great if we discuss in the comment section, is how do we grow a community? I think the first step is to have a clear definition, or to have a clear definition of what a community is, to give it some focus and give it a destination where it wants to achieve. Give it a destination where we want to get to. Second of all, I think we need a place to meet on regular occasions so we can discuss the issues affecting that community and then work together on solving these. I think that's a good starting place. Maybe you guys out there have got more ideas on what it would take to build a community, and I would love to explore what you think the obstacles are, the limitations are, all of that stuff. So if you throw it down in the comment section, it'll be great. I'll circle back round to the topic, and also I'd love to know what you think of my definition of a community. What is your definition of a community? And then we can go from there, and we can really just start building. So I think I end this podcast here. I'm going to circle back around to some of the topics that I brushed over. I think culture, definitely we're going to have a podcast on culture. I think it's a very interesting topic that we have to explore. I think it's a very sensitive subject. Very sensitive subject that people would rather brush over than to delve into. I think it's important to have a podcast on protecting your energy. I think, that's something that I personally had to learn. And it's helped me in my day to day. So I think we'll circle back onto those two topics, and I'll see you next time. As always, we still are doing these university tours. So if you know anybody in university, share this podcast with them. Our links, our email address is in the description box. So get in contact with us. We will try to talk with your ACS. We'll set up a day where we can come in and we have an open university discussion where we talk about some more topical issues, some more pressing issues, and we try to grow a community around the ACSs in the different universities. So that's your More Than a Mindset podcast. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.